Welcome to the Four Bells and Workout from Home number 102. Today we've got ourselves a lovely upper body day in the books. We are going to be focusing on some vertical pressing in the form of maybe some body weight vertical push-ups, something new, or some kind of overhead pressing with some kind of weight depending on what you have at home. We're going to be pairing that with some rows to balance out the shoulder girdle, but to get us ready for all of these things today, we have three things in mind. We are going to start with some shoulder circles, making sure we can move that shoulder through a full range of motion and hopefully nice and pain-free. From there, we're going to do some scapular push-ups, looking at control through the shoulder blades, and then from there, we're going to look at a movement that's similar to the YTWI, that helps look at all the muscles at the back of the shoulder and the upper back and help those move together. We're going to play around with a new movement called the Blackburn. We are going to do these three things 3 times in the warm-up today. When it comes to shoulder circles, really just being able to articulate the joint fully. So that means starting off with something as simple as maybe both arms moving backwards at the same time, and then from there, moving forwards with both. From there, you can get to fancy things like one arm forwards, one arm backwards, of course, changing directions. You can do one arm across, switch the sides. There's many different variations. So pick variations that feel a little bit tough or don't feel like the easiest ones to do, just to make sure that we're kind of trying to address those little tough spots. And we should be doing shoulder circles for about 30 seconds. From there, we're going to get into scat push-ups. So before we even get into the actual push-up situation, if I'm just on my knees, I'm looking to draw the shoulder blades together and then protract the shoulder blades apart. We bring them together and then push them apart. So of course, if I want to do it on my knees, that's fine. If I can do it on my toes, it's exactly the same rules. Shoulder blades together, shoulder blades apart. From there with the Blackburn, I'm going to lay down on the floor. That's very similar to the YTWI. It's like the YTWI's breaststrokey cousin. So that means I'm going to start overhead. I bring the arms out and behind. From here we bring the elbows up, out and behind. So I start, internally rotate the hands, bring the palms together, lift the elbows up, and then we bring those hands back out to where we started. Internally rotate, lift those elbows up, and then come back to external rotation at the top. Those are the 3 things we are doing in our warm-up today. For today's strength piece, we have 5 sets. Each set is 3 minutes long, split into 2 90-second windows of time. Our first 90 seconds is going to be focusing on vertical pressing of some kind. So we're going to play around today, if you're in the mood, to work on pike push-ups, which is kind of like the precursor to handstand push-ups, learning to get the torso more vertical and of course trying to get more body weight into the press as we go through it. Of course, if you're looking at that thinking, well, that's a great idea, coach, but I can't even do a regular push-up, you could, of course, work on your regular push-ups today, or if you're not in the mood for any kind of body weight push-up and you have the resources available, some kind of overhead press working bilaterally, 2 arms at the same time, could be a good idea for you. So whether we're doing pike push-ups or overhead pressing today, we're doing somewhere between 8 to 10 reps, always shooting for 10 at first. As difficulty increases, we can bring the reps down a little bit if we need to, and we'll be working at a 2-0-X-1, which basically means that I'm going to press, pause for a second, then it should be 1-2 on the way down, regardless of what exercise I am doing. From there, in our second 90 seconds, we're going to do some kind of row. Ideally, a 1-arm row of some kind, and even more ideally, some kind of either suspension device. So it could be the rings or the TRX. We'll be doing that for 8 reps on one arm, and then 8 reps on the other arm. And ideally, if we can, if we're on rings or a TRX, getting our feet closer to that pivot point to make it harder. Of course, if we don't have rings or a TRX, using a dumbbell or a kettlebell and using that weight for 1-arm rows is perfectly fine too. Let's take a look at both of these guys. When it comes to the pike push-up, it can be a little bit scary at first going upside down. And it is, and was, for me, again, be a little bit scary getting upside down. It's usually directly proportional to the amount of time you spent upside down when you were a kid. If you didn't spend much time upside down, getting upside down is very, I suppose, unsettling at first. But this is why we kind of start with the pike push-up with our feet on the floor, our hands and head relatively close to the floor. So if anything does go wrong, not only are we close to the floor, but we've also got this lovely squishy mat to protect at the top of our heads. So the aim of the game today is kind of just start easy, but what I've got to think about is my setup. So I like to think about it as like a very kind of wide-based triangle. I'm going to have my hands here, and it should be just behind my head, and the top point of that triangle is my head. So that means my head is trying to come over my hands as I do my pike push-up. You want to think of the shoulder coming over the hand too. So I set myself up, and all I'm trying to think of is different to my regular push-up. I'm going to start in almost like a downward-facing dog position, and we can play around with how close the feet come. So the closer the feet come to the hands, the harder it's going to be. The higher I am on the tiptoes, the harder it's going to be. So if we just start easily, I'm going to look at my toes. Come up onto my tiptoes, head comes forwards, and from there I press back up. So following the tempo, 2 down, explode up, pause for 1, I come down, 1, 2, and press up and explode. So if we want to make it a little bit harder, obviously from there what we're trying to do is bring the feet closer to the hands, and again super high on the tiptoes, and then from there elevating the feet further. So all that would mean for me is if I set up my position, what I'm going to do is walk the feet in, come way up high onto the tiptoes, look at the toes, head comes forward, and I press back up. That is one way to make it harder. Of course, if you want to make it harder still, we can then start to elevate the feet. So maybe on like one stair in your house or a very small box, start very small when we start to elevate those feet as we move closer and closer to a handstand push-up. So of course, if pike push-ups are not for you, or even regular push-ups are not for you today, then we can do some kind of overhead press. And you can really use anything. It could be a barbell, could be dumbbells, kettlebells. Ideally, whatever we are using, we are working bilaterally. So that means both arms working together. So either way, whatever you're doing, we can do it seated, standing. If you've got limited ceiling height, whatever works best for you. We're going to do 8 to 10 reps, or we're shooting for 10, and the same tempo applies. We explode up, pause for 1 second. It's 1, 2 on the way down. Pause. Explode up, 1 second, 1, 2 on the way down. And that's what we'll be doing if pike push-ups or push-ups are not for you. With our one-arm ring row or TRX row, what we're trying to do is make sure that the strap that I'm using is not in line with the center of the body, which was kind of like the draw for a lot of people. I want to think, well, I'm centered, make sure I don't rotate. I actually want to make sure that the strap is lined up with the arm that I'm rowing with. So that means the strap should come straight down and line up with my right arm. I don't want to be in the middle here, so actually make me roll around a lot. So I want to be lined up with the shoulder that I'm pulling with. From here, we set our feet up. I'm going to be in my tight plank position, which means glutes tight, quads tight, abs tight. From there, I pull the elbow back, bring the chest to the rings, and then back down to a straight arm. What I'm trying to avoid as I do my one-arm rows is just making sure that I don't rotate. So if I move to the other arm, you'll be able to see it a little bit easier. From here, if I come down, it's very easy for me to rotate out. Obviously I'm open over the top, and as I pull, it's very easy for me to rotate in. I'm trying to avoid that, so I like to have my hand on my shoulder so I can see my elbow in my periphery, and that can tell me whether I'm rotating around or not. Either way, I'm doing 8 per side of a ring or TRX row, and of course trying to get those feet closer to that pivot point if I can. If you don't have rings or a TRX, you can do a simple one-arm bent over row, or maybe kneeling on a bench. Either is fine, but we're doing 8 reps per arm. In today's conditioning peaks, we have ourselves a 12-minute AMRAP, 720 seconds of joy, where we start our AMRAP with a 200-meter run. Now we can talk about all the logistics of what you can do and what you could do, but if you can get outside to run, we strongly encourage you to run today. And if you can't get outside, then that could be 200 meters on a rower, 400 meters on a bike, 50 jumping jacks, but get outside if you can. From there, when our 200-meter run is done, we get to some anchored sit-ups. So we're actually trying to put our feet under an object to anchor the feet, which means the hip flexors work a little bit less, which hopefully means we can get more direct work to the abdominals, which is the aim of the game today. We're going to do 15 anchored feet sit-ups. And then from there, we're going to, with one big dumbbell, we are going to do some dumbbell clean and push press. We're going to do 10 on one side, 10 on the other. We're going to go through these 3 things as many times as possible in that 12-minute window of time. let's take a quick look at the exercises today. At the beginning of our AMRAP, it's 200 meters. Do you want to go for a run away from your house or your apartment for 100 meters, turn around and then come back? Sure, you can do that. That would be the best option if we can, trying to keep that pace up in the run. If you don't have that available, it could be a rowing machine, could be a ski erg if you're super fancy, could be double the distance, 400 on a bike, or it could be an insane amount of jumping jacks, like 50 jumping jacks. That would work very well too. Either way, the amount of time should be somewhere around, I'd probably say in class times, we're looking at about 45, 50 seconds. Of course, it's not Usain Bolt's 200 meter time, but we've got lots of stuff to do. We're doing stuff for 12 minutes. So once our 200 meter run is done, we're then get into anchored sit-ups. So I'm going to use these dumbbells here to anchor my toes, which means the hip flexors have to work a little bit less, which means the abs have to work a little bit more. I'm going to cross my hands, vampire style. I lay all the way down, sit all the way up, bring my elbows to touch my knees every single rep. Once my 15 anchored sit-ups are done, I grab myself a heavy dumbbell, shouldn't be an easy one, and we're going to do a clean and push press. I'm going to start with the dumbbell in between the legs, hinge, we bring it to the shoulder, and from there, we push press. Clean, receive it, push press. And that's what we're looking to do. Have a nice hinge, keep that dumbbell close to the body. I'm not letting the dumbbell get away from the body. It should be nice and close as we do our cleans and push presses 10 per side. So we've got a 12-minute AMRAP today. 200 meter run, 15 anchored sit-ups, 10 per side of that clean and push press. Have fun with workout from home number 102 and let us know how you get on.